near side, there is a feature called, I believe, Burgess Alpha that is equally or maybe higher albedo. Um, I apologize for the hands. I'm trying to listen and talk at the same time, but I will try to get some more information to correlate those colors from Aristarchus for you.
Understood, Victor, and good call to not bug the window team. Really like the brightness comparisons to Burgess A. Really helpful for the science team. Keep them coming. Thanks.
I also heard a discussion about the albedo of Grimaldi being a 10, and how many of us, when we were a little further away, saw that as the darkest albedo, and then the bigger Mari off to the west or to the east was still dark, but maybe a 7-8. We still think that, but you are seeing color variation, albedo variation inside of Grimaldi as well, and that even on the west side, there's still a very dark part of it. But it is still the darkest. It is just not as uniform as it looked when we were farther away. We're starting to differentiate the striations of albedo inside of Grimaldi.
Copy all, Victor, and you read our minds. Superlatives like darkest, biggest are really, really helpful for us, so keep those coming.
As we were just mentioning, the crew is slated to perform these science sit reps. They are prompted to do so by an icon in their lunar targeting plan. That one coming down from NASA astronaut and pilot of Artemis 2, Victor Glover. As we discussed, the Capcom is usually the only person in the room speaking with the crew, the capsule communicator. However, today, the science officer, Dr. Kelsey Young, she is the Artemis Science Flight Operator, is speaking with the crew during the flyby to ask any questions that the team may have. To her right is Trevor Graff. He is one of 3 science officers. Those would be Kelsey Young, Trevor Graff, and Angela Garcia, who will also join us later for an interview.
And Houston Integrity was able to, excuse me, Science Integrity, I was able to get a view out of window 1, which is a beautiful view. I can see the entire fun that they're looking at. We left the t-shirt up there, so I was kind of peeking through the opening in the makeshift shroud there. And once I was able to get 2 eyes on it, what jumped out at me was Vavilov. It's just peeking out of the Terminator. It's clear of the Terminator now, but it just really jumps out because it's still got the low light, the low sun angle. And so where the, Vavilov has that impact over the top of another crater, where the 2 craters intersect on the eastern edge. So on the side closest to Oriental, where the 2 crater rings intersect, the shadow there is the highest peak in the interior of Vavilov, and so you can see that terrain is there's some real variation in the terrain there. That there's a nice peak where those peaks
love the description, Victor, especially the comparison and relationships you just described about topography. And if it's easier for your observations, do feel free to remove the T-shirt strap from window 1.
Absolutely, we will do. Thank you.
Those calls coming from NASA astronaut Victor Glover. As we discussed, the crew is working in pairs at the windows. Right now, taking photos are Commander Reed Wiseman and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen. Serving as their support team are pilot Victor Glover and Mission Specialist Christina Cook. You're hearing those calls from Victor Glover as he is on that support team, and he is tasked with providing the science sit reps, while the two crew photographing and making annotations of the moon are in Windows 2 and 3. Windows 1 and 4 are available for the support crew to fly up to, obviously look at the moon themselves, and provide these science situational reports. The view on your screen is part of the lunar targeting package, and it's something that the crew can reference as they are flying by, but this is an animation. You also heard Glover mention Oriental. Oriental is a major feature that the team is interested in today, and it's known as the Grand Canyon of the Moon. Until this mission, the Oriental Basin had never been seen in sunlight by human eyes. Oriental Basin and its surrounding ejecta could fit within a straight line distance from NASA's Johnson Space Center, where we are at today, to Kennedy Space Center. This a live view in Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas, where the teams are monitoring all systems, not just for today's flyby, but on the spacecraft themselves. Again, this is a test flight, our very first flight of humans on the Orion spacecraft. This team has been this team has been monitoring the entire time of the mission, as well as we have been live the entirety of the mission, and we will be continuing to do so all the way through splashdown and crew recovery from the Pacific. This is a visualization from ARROW, the Artemis Real-Time Orbit website that you can also access at any time by visiting nasa.gov/trackartemis, showing us that we are now under 10,000 miles from the moon, 9,948 to be specific, and continuing to count down. Again, our closest approach to the moon today should come about 6:02 p.m. Central, 7:02 p.m. Eastern. However, we will be out of contact with the crew at this time as they begin transiting behind the moon. At that time of closest approach, the distance from Orion to the lunar surface will be about 4,070 miles. Of course, these are estimates at this time, and we'll be sure to provide you with the official numbers once that closest approach has been reached. This shot live inside the Orion spacecraft, where our 4 crew members are continuing with their lunar flyby activities. They have just begun those activities really about 20 minutes ago, so we've got several hours of moon view opportunities. This is still a live view inside that capsule. However, you can see just how dark they have turned down the lights. Actually, they've turned them all the way off. There are a few LEDs that they cannot power off, but turning down these lights gives them better views outside of the spacecraft's windows while they photograph the moon. This also prevents any reflections from inside the spacecraft bouncing up on the windows and interfering with their photography. As we were previously discussing, the crew members are serving on teams. The first team being Commander Reed Wiseman and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen at the windows photographing what they see. We heard reports earlier that they could see both the moon and the Earth in the same view, and we're looking forward to seeing the moon and the Earth in the same view as well. That Earth set coming up in just a few hours. While Wiseman and Hansen are at the windows photographing, Glover and Cook are serving as support crew. They are able to assist with cameras. They are also providing those situation reports, letting us know how the team is working inside the spacecraft, what they're seeing, and how they're feeling about it. Those first blocks of teams will last about an hour, and the crew members are approaching the halfway point into their first observation block. A reminder, we have 5 of those blocks today. So they're approaching this halfway point, during which the crew at the window will switch roles. One will begin taking pictures, and the other will be making annotations on their PCD, that's portable computing device. Both of those crew members at the windows are recording audio of what they see. They are putting on headsets and recording audio into their portable computing devices. Obviously, we are not hearing this right now. This is going to be sent down to the science team, and they will be able to analyze that at a later time. What we are hearing, though, and will continue to hear, are those science sit reps a few times every block. Once this block is complete, about 40 minutes from now, we will have the teams switch. That means Pilot Victor Glover and
Looking out of window one, I think I may have misreported earlier saying that it was Tycho going over the horizon. That was Copernicus I was referring to. Apologies. It was Copernicus is what is farthest bounding to the east, and that is now like on the horizon or just past it. And Korolev is now a few degrees from going over the horizon. And then, next it'll be Aristarchus. Aristarchus is plateau. And so on the west, we are getting a much better view of the Terminator. Looks like we have about 80% illumination of the moon. And Vavilov and 1 Vavilov diameter to the west is where the Terminator is right now. And so other features are starting to peek out there. The center of the illuminated part of the moon is to the lower part is Oriental, and just around Oriental, a lot of light structure is starting to show up. A lot of high albedo, similar to the feature I cannot remember, just alpha and Aristarchus type high albedo in the ring. So when you look at the interior ring and the external ring, it's almost as if the edges are starting to dry up and turn white. If it was something that was wet and got dry, the edges would be the part to dry first. You just kind of outline all the topography in the interior of that wall is like it was dusted with chalk or is starting to dry, or maybe dusted with snow. If this was the Earth, I would say there was snow dumped on some of the ridges on the interior of the rings of Oriental. Also, an interesting part of the discussion that I heard between Reed and Jerry is that from Glico to Grimaldi, there are 2 dark features there that look like commas, but in the wrong direction. But there's also a lot of interestingness, just a lot of geometry and squiggles and dots and lines that are starting to stand out as more small features come into view. And there also is a lot of variation in albedo. And some of those, the 2 dark features, for example, have on the southern edge of the larger one, the one that's further to the south, is a very dark, the 1 albedo, like the southern and western part of Grimaldi. And the one to the north, closer to Glico, is also that same dark albedo. And then around them, there are some very high albedo spots just to the north of the southern one, and just to the west, the smaller one to the north. Very high albedo, almost approaching the 10, a 9 or a 10, like Aristarchus. And lots of little spots are just starting to pop up in this view. To the north, as you look up at the North Pole, there is a very distinct crater with a lot of a very defined central peak that is also 3 in albedo, and all of that area past it, going to the horizon, gets lighter and lighter, and is very, very high albedo. And I will go look and find the name of that feature if I can look that up. And then to the south, really getting some interesting geography and topography in the South Pole Aitken Basin. And the view of the South Pole is quite amazing. We've got some Terminator there, as well as the lit view, and there is a very distinct crater right at the South Pole. And I'm going to go look up, I don't believe that is Aiken, but I'm going to go look up the name of that one because it's also giving a lot of good topography due to the shadows that I'm seeing. But that's, I was trying to bound the view that I'm seeing for it, and got distracted by all of these interesting albedo variations that are popping up in the interior. But that's the view that we see just about a long diameter to the west beyond is where the Terminator is. Just beyond, I think Copernicus is the easternmost feature that we can see. A very nice ringed, very nice structure crater to the north with a great high albedo central uplift to the north, and the south is dotted by a very characteristic crater with a lot of terrain, shadow features. And I will go try to find some landmarks to put names with those. Any questions for the observation team?
Integrity Science, love the descriptions. You're definitely looking odd up there. Appreciate seeing the training being implemented. Especially interested in your descriptions of the dark patches. You compared the comma-looking features to the albedo you see in Grimaldi, and notice that you're starting to see those color differences popping out. Any observations you want to make, especially when you get on, the PCD in a little bit, would really help us tease out the differences in those dark mare deposits. Great description, Victor. Keep them coming.
Absolutely will do, and I know you've got descriptions on both of the window observers right now as well. Keep it coming.
Great evidence of how well trained this crew is by the science team. NASA astronaut and pilot of the Artemis 2 mission, Victor Glover, calling down a situation report, noting several different features on the moon and such descriptions, even saying that it looks like snow on some of the peaks. Obviously, we do not expect that to be snow, but referencing that as some of the lighting on how it looks to the Artemis 2 crew from their current position. The team is slated to be switching their positions at the windows now. Both Reed Wiseman and Jeremy Hansen have been at windows 2 and 3, one taking photos, one making observations and annotations on their portable computing device. At this time, we also anticipate that they are looking at a crater duo. One of those is Glushko, and the other is Ohm. The team is looking to know the extent of Glushko's ray system and how its rays differ in the mare versus the highlands. They also want us the team to compare the ray systems of Glushko to Ohm. Ohm is considered a young crater. If you've ever seen a photo of the Ridgehouse structure, it's also known as the Eye of the Sahara. It's 40 kilometers in diameter, and that could fit within Ohm's interior. The team is specifically interested in descriptions of that ray visibility, including the color, albedo. Remember, albedo is the brightness or the surface reflection, and the reach. Again, I am using the same lunar targeting package that the crew is referencing on board right now. This helps keep them on time as well as prompt them for when they need to make a call down to the science team and report what they're saying. It also gives them reminders of when they need to swap positions at the windows. Additionally, I'm using the Artemis 2 Lunar Science Passport developed by Amber Turner and the Artemis 2 Lunar Science team. Now, this passport did not fly with the crew, but they used it extensively as a study guide here on Earth. So a lot of the descriptions and comparisons you hear today are developed directly by the science team. We are now 4 days, 20 hours, and 43 minutes.
Science, integrity, that crater to the north, that is, like, we've got one in the north that looks like just a textbook crater, and one on the south pole as well. The one in the north, I think, is Pythagoras. And what I wanted to highlight about that is, it is either a very distinct central uplift or just a very defined area of high albedo. If a majority of the crater, especially the floor of the crater, is, say, an albedo of 5, this center, and gosh, only a tenth of the diameter of Pythagoras is an albedo of 2, maybe 3, but it's very bright and it stands out. And then between that crater and the actual, what is the horizon from here, there seems to be another crater right on the horizon. And right on the edge of that is another patch of that albedo. It seems to be between the two craters. It's hard to tell from this grazing angle. But there is another spot just further north beyond Pythagoras. Between the two, I can draw a picture of this one and show you where that very high albedo, again, another 2 albedo surrounded by 5 in most of the area bounding it.
Integrity science, thanks for that. We agree with the Pythagoras assessment. And as a follow-up to your previous report, the SIR had questions about topography comparisons between the North Pole and the South Pole of the Moon, if you're willing to provide words on that.
Topography comparisons, absolutely. And if you had any idea what, if you draw a line between Pythagoras and the western edge of the outer defined ring of Oriental, it intersects a beautiful textbook crater on the south. I would love to know the name of that. The topography differences, now the South Pole has a little bit of a benefit that it has more of the terminator, and I can see a little more shadowing there, but there's a nice crater right at the South Pole, so that's the main thing defining the topography there. Seems to be quite a bit of elevation change. I can see some very jagged shadows at 90 degree just to the west of that crater at the South Pole. I can see a very distinct change in the shadow directions, indicating, I don't know, a very high wall or a very deep canyon just to the west of that. And in the north, it seems to be just draw a ring around that. The near side is an albedo of 5 and looks quite smooth from here. And then along the same edge of the mare, the edge of the mare that kind of the Grimaldi is just outside of, Blushko is just outside of, Carol Crater is just outside of, and you start to see the stark differences between the darker 7/8s and the 5s and 6s, the 4s and 5s. If you follow that line up to the north, that line is also where the change in topography happens at the North Pole. The line defining the light and dark of the edge of the mare that you can see from Earth. Draw that line roughly the midpoint of all that straight to the North Pole. And on the side facing the Earth, you see smoother topography and dotted by Pythagoras and its next door neighbor crater. And then on the far side, you see a lot more cratering and a lot more topography. And again, the far side has the benefit of a little terminator there, but I am seeing a variation in the topography. It seems to be more jagged, a more challenging place to find a place to land and to even traverse in the south, all around the South Pole. And at the North Pole, it would be more challenging to translate on the far side of the North Pole compared to the near side of the North Pole around Pythagoras.
Copy all, Victor. You really help paint a contextual picture of what you're looking at. We really appreciate the way that you're guiding us into the areas you're seeing by drawing comparisons between recognizable features. Thanks for that.
And Kelsey, another little science moment, something I just heard from the window team is the more I look at the moon, the browner and browner it looks. I thought that was an interesting observation. The two observers have been on timeline, no hardware issues. They did start to talk a little bit about another feature that you'll hear more about on the recordings that they call the handprint. That was at the end of their Glushko and before they moved into their current target. They thought that was worth chatting a little bit more about. And they're preparing to switch after this.
Houston copies and concurs.
Hey, Houston Science, actually Houston and Science Integrity, another just observation from the human. My eyes have shifted a little bit since I've been up here. I've been wearing my reading glasses to look at the PCD. Well, this is a very taxing event on the eyes, looking out the window and seeing the very bright moon and coming back inside to the dark cabin and trying to work cameras and microphones and logistics and lunch and those kinds of things. And then looking at the PCD, which is dimly lit. It's just been an exercise. It is a difficult thing to manage it. I'm up and down on the glasses and then having to wait as my eyes adjust when I come back in. As soon as I look back into the cabin from looking out the window, I can just feel my eyes adjusting and I just have to work through it as they adjust.
Appreciate that report, Victor, and know that we are prepared to read you up targets from the ground if that would give you the ability to keep your eyes focused on the moon and not having to swap between that and the PCD. Just let us know.
Yeah, we appreciate that science, and we will also do that for the window teams, and we'll back each other up that way as well. But we appreciate that. We may take you up on that. Thanks.
Continued detailed descriptions from the Artemis 2 crew aboard Orion. Again, this is a test flight, the first time we've flown humans aboard this spacecraft, so every detail, even that it's difficult to look outside the window and then back at the PCD, that portable computing device, every single detail is appreciated as we prepare for future missions. Glover also mentioned that he is now wearing his glasses now that he's in space and that his eyes have shifted a bit. This is something that happens when our astronauts go to space. There is a fluid shift from the lower half of your body up into your head, and that can cause changes in your eyes. It's something that we have seen over time for some crew members, especially now that we have been living and working on the International Space Station for over 25 years. Again, it's clear that these Artemis II astronauts have undergone extensive lunar science training, including classroom instruction, field work, and high-fidelity simulations. Training expeditions even took place in analog environments like the Icelandic highlands and the Kemasasin impact crater in Labrador, where crews practiced identifying and describing geologic features under varying conditions. Additionally, here at Johnson Space Center, Orion mock-ups were used to rehearse crew choreography, including three-dimensional space management with an inflatable moon globe to simulate the flyby. And while on Earth, the crew also used that small lunar passport that I mentioned with descriptions, photos, and prompts to help them study the features we hope they'll see. Now, this is a view from their lunar targeting package at this time, helping them determine what they're seeing on the moon, as well as on the left, keep up with what their next target will be. As you can see, we have got a long list and an exciting day ahead of us. It's now been 4 days, 20 hours, and 53 minutes since Orion launched atop the Space Launch System rocket from Kennedy Space Center in Florida with our 4 crew members aboard: NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Cook, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. The Artemis II crew passed a major milestone today when they passed the Apollo 13 distance record at 12:57 p.m. Central, 1:57 p.m. Eastern. That Apollo 13 distance record was 248,655 statute miles from Earth.
You've been another observation, whole moon. When you look at the moon, something I've never seen in photographs before, but it's very apparent, all the really bright new craters. Some of them are super tiny. Most of them are pretty small. There's a couple that really stand out, obviously. And what it really looks like is like a lampshade with tiny pinprick holes and the light shining through. They are so bright compared to the rest of the moon.
We copy, Christina. Thank you. Looks like you guys might be doing it, but remind you to swap positions at the window and take your SD cards with you. We're loving everything that you're calling down, so keep it up.
Again, Orion previously surpassed that the Apollo 13 greatest distance from Earth by humans. That was 248,655 statute miles from Earth, and Orion now 250,294 miles away from our home planet. The spacecraft is 9,033 miles away from the moon and growing ever closer. At its closest approach, it'll be about 4,070 miles away, and we will make sure we confirm what that distance ends up being. This is an approximation and an estimate ahead of that moment. We're anticipating them to make that closest approach at 6:02 p.m. Central, 7:02 Eastern, when they are in a loss of signal, transiting behind the moon. They will be the first humans in over 50 years to fly behind the moon and lose contact with Earth. We will regain that contact about 40 minutes later as they reconnect to the Deep Space Network, emerging from behind the moon, and we will look forward to seeing an Earthrise. Again, the crew is currently in their position swap portion on their timeline. This allows crew members the opportunity and the experience of all roles necessary during today's flyby. Right now, those two crew members at the window have swap positions. Again, the crew at the windows swapping positions. Right now, that crew is Commander Reed Wiseman and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen, while Victor Glover and Christina Cook serve as their support flyby crew members. That's why you are hearing Victor and Christina during those science situation reports. Those voices will change in about 30 minutes when they take a turn taking photos and making annotations while at the window.
Houston integrity. I wanted to provide an observation or a little bit of descriptive nature on something that we saw on the first day we had good moon views. This was when we saw more of the near side, and the ground helped me out with identifying Mare Imbrium. Mare Imbrium, when you have the western limb also in view, looks completely different than the normal view we have of the near side. It is the most striking feature of the western limb view that we had. And the mountain chains that form its eastern side are very prominent, but they actually stand out more than I'm used to seeing even on the western side. And the whole thing just feels like a big bump. It actually looks like a large healing wound with a high albedo forming the mountain chain around the impact basin. And I just don't think I had had enough chance to describe how striking it was on that western limb view as we were coming in a couple days ago.
Christina, science, absolutely love that, especially since that's a feature that all of us here on Earth can observe from home. So I'm sure tonight everyone's going to be going out and looking for evidence of that beautiful topography you just said. Thanks for those words.
The view on your screen coming from Orion, a camera mounted on the spacecraft's solar array wing. Toward the right of your screen, the near side is the hemisphere we see from Earth. That is identifiable by those dark splotches, which are ancient lava flows.
Sorry, science integrity. A question and a comment. Question is it possible that we're seeing a shot of your basin from this vantage point in the Terminator at the South Pole? And the comment is, the rays coming out of Ulm are less distinct. We are not seeing the bright rays coming out of it, but the sort of 9 o'clock wedge that is formed by the change in albedo from the interior portion that is to the northeast to the surrounding lighter Mare that's 270 degrees to the west. That 90 is very distinct and interior. You got some great descriptions from the two at the window about the colors in there. But in that darker part in that wedge, you've got some really interesting color, even though the rays, the distinct difference in the albedo almost look like rays, but it's not the rays coming out. It's the just change in the albedo.
Integrity science, that is very intriguing. Those color rays coming out of Ohm rather than sort of albedo. And as answer to your question, we do not think you can see Schrodinger. It's in darkness as of now. But thanks for that Ohm description, and it sounds like the pair at the window's got great descriptions that we're definitely going to dive into tonight.
Okay, if you could help me, I would still love to know what it is they're saying. Very nice crater. I'd like to have a lot of pictures of it. What would be right in the Terminator at the South Pole or close to the South Pole? Where it's intersecting the Terminator right now?
Yeah, Victor, we're assuming you're talking about, kind of if you're looking at the Terminator, it's basically like 70% down from the North Pole. Is that where you're looking?
Contact, yes, that is where I'm looking.
Integrity Houston, that is an enabled caution for wastewater dump required. We have hit our limit. As expected, no crew action.
Copy, no crew action.
You are.
And integrity science, we're trying to figure out what you're looking at there. Is it like right on the Terminator, or is it in the eliminated portion next to the Terminator?
While we wait for a response from the crew, the Terminator is that difference between day and night, or brightness and darkness, that you see on the moon. We see this from the International Space Station as well, looking down at Earth.
And science for integrity, excuse my space orientation annotation. If you draw a line between Bludigo through the center of Oriental, and then another line from Bludigo through the southern tangent of Oriental, that line would almost perfectly intersect tangentially the crater that I'm talking about, and it is on the Terminator. So yeah, I think I'm not looking at the South Pole. I was a little twisted.
That line description was really helpful. I have eyes on the SIR right now, and they are actively discussing lunar geography. We will be back with you shortly.
You're hearing a couple voices today in Mission Control Houston. One of those is Dr. Kelsey Young.
Integrity science, we believe that's Zeeman Crater.
to a new view, and I'm looking more into Babylon. I've got a nice, great view into Babylon. I'm actually away from the window right now, so I'm going to go try to give you some bounding words on the view that we're seeing. But I've got to get back to a window in a minute.
Understood, Victor. You're defining new views of the moon in more ways than one.
Again, when you hear calls down to science or from science, that's Dr. Kelsey Young, the Artemis Science Flight Operations Lead here at a console in Mission Control. You also hear communications with the crew from Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jenny Gibbons. She is the Capcom for today. She is a backup Artemis 2 crew member. Those calls from pilot Victor Glover asking about a feature he was seeing, specifically a crater on the moon. Meanwhile, the team here in the science evaluation room was actively working together to determine which feature he was describing. The teams at the window have continued to move through their targets, including Ohm, Aristarchus Plateau, Reiner Gamma, and we are preparing for the cabin and window teams to swap. That's when we'll hear more from Reed Wiseman and Jeremy Hansen when they take on these support roles, while Christina Cook and Victor Glover are at the windows photographing and annotating. As we briefly mentioned, if you look towards the right side of the moon, essentially, this live view coming from a camera outside the Orion spacecraft, and if you look on the right side of the moon where you see those dark patches.
Wow, yeah, I wish I had some more time to just sit here and describe what I'm seeing, but the Terminator right now is just fantastic. It is the most rugged that I've seen it from a lighting perspective. There are little islands. There are islands of terrain out there that are completely surrounded by darkness, which indicates some real variation in terrain. Up to the north, there is a very nice double crater. It looks like a snowman sitting there, in the 5-10 degrees below the pole in the Terminator. And then on the southern edge, there's almost like a hole. It looks like a hole, and it's the diameter of Babylon size, just blackness, and then a wall of bright, and then it goes back to the black beyond the Terminator. So there's it looks like there's just a gigantic hole right there. One Babylon diameter east of the Terminator, and as you go south, the Terminator is not a nice smooth arc. It's just jagged. There's almost a 110-degree turn in the shadow as opposed to the nice smooth arc, again indicating some really interesting variations. And I'm sure we'll get some photos of that. And then one of the craters further to the south of Babylon, maybe halfway down to the South Pole, is not only it looks like just a deep hole, and then there's like two island rays pointing off to the west and north that indicate very high ridges and very deep canyons coming up out of that crater. So again, just some really interesting visual illusions going on with the shadows there. Like I said, they look to be islands out beyond the Terminator, because some of the things, maybe even a Babylon diameter into the Terminator are catching sunlight on the peaks to the north and to the south. It's very, very interesting to see.
Integrity science. Oh my gosh, that was an amazing picture you just painted. I glanced over at the SIR video and I literally saw fist pumps in the air. Those types of observations are things that humans are uniquely able to contribute, and you just really brought us along with you. So thanks for that.
That's awesome, Kelsey. Did you get a service updating you on a slight change in logistics for PCBs?
Christina, this is Houston. We did not, but we will take it now.
We slightly changed the PCB plan for the window observers. The two window observers kept their PCB. So in other words, the one that window 2 went to window 3 and the one that window 3 went to window 2 when they swapped rather than staying at the window. We'll plan on all observers keeping the same PCB for all observations.
Copy, Christina. That makes sense to us, and good plan. We are coming up here on a cabin and window team swap. Let me know when you're ready for a quick vehicle status.
As you heard, science.
Go for the vehicle system update.
Howdy, Reed. We don't have much for you. We just wanted to let you know that toilet right now is no-go for use as we stick with the predetermined limit for now. All crew members, please use CCUs. Otherwise, Orion is looking very good. And you have 15 minutes in this handover time where we expect Victor and Christina to switch to the windows and you and Jeremy to be in the cabin assisting. Let us know if you have any questions.
No questions at all. They're in the swap right now. The first thing I floated up to the docking hatch window and just what I'm going to call the morning around Oriental just looks so different out the docking hatch right now. It's quite a bit darker. It's the same darkness, if not a little darker than Grimaldi. But it's cool after just being in the 400 mil for the last half hour. Looking up close, I got pictures of everything I was just describing on the Terminator. It really is a fascinating Terminator. And Oriental just looks so dynamic right now. It's very three-dimensional on the docking hatch compared to what I was just looking at through the 400 mil.
We love it. We are getting a sneak preview from one of our SAW cameras of what you're looking at, and we see some of what you're describing. We cannot wait to see your photos. Thanks.
Yeah, Jenny, I wish you had some longer lenses on the solar array so you could see the whole moon, but it is, or the up close moon, not the whole moon, but it is just fascinating here. It's so cool.
All right, NVO and Inco, take notes. We want a zoom lens on those saws next time. Thanks, Reed.
Hey, for a minute.
As the crew gets ready to switch positions from the window crew going back to the support crew and the support crew flying up to the windows, this view inside the room, Capcom Jenny Gibbons speaking with the crew, Canadian Space Agency astronaut. The crew has continued to provide excellent descriptions of what they are seeing on the lunar surface. In this picture, or in this live view actually, from Orion and a camera mounted on its solar array wing, if you look at the dark portion on the right side of the screen, those are visible from Earth. That's considered the near side. Those are ancient lava flows from a time early in the moon's history when it was volcanically active. If you look towards the left, there's that dark, large crater that appears above, to the left of those lava flows. That's Oriental Basin. It's about 600 miles wide. It straddles the moon's near and far side, and this mission is the first time that humans have ever been able to see this with their eyes in the daylight. Again, you hear conversation about that Terminator. You have a great view of that as well. That's the difference between light and darkness on the moon. Victor Glover explaining that as a very jagged looking Terminator due to the peaks that they're seeing and the craters that they're seeing as they prepare to cross over the far side. You also heard Science Officer, the Dr. Kelsey Young, Artemis Science Flight Operations Lead, sharing with Victor Glover that his responses are truly something that only human eyes can discern or provide. So we previously discussed how having humans observing the moon on this mission is being combined with lunar robotic data to help us maximize what we know about the moon. So part of that data comes from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, or LRO. This orbiter provides the robotic foundation that makes Artemis 2 lunar science possible. LRO has been orbiting the moon for 17 years, which makes it the longest operated lunar orbiter in history. It's also the only American spacecraft dedicated specifically to lunar science and exploration. Artemis 2 lunar observations are designed to complement data like the detailed surface images from LRO. So while LRO provides those detailed high-resolution maps of the moon's surface, the Artemis 2 crew adds human observations that focus on regional context and relationships between features, giving scientists a larger geologic picture. Now, this combination of robotic and human observations strengthens lunar science. LRO delivers precise and repeatable measurements over long periods of time, while the Artemis 2 crew contributes real-time visual descriptions and context that robotic instruments alone cannot provide. The best description I've heard while preparing for this mission is to compare the difference in looking at the moon with your own eyes on Earth and trying to take a picture with a camera. The camera truly never does it justice, and it's much easier to describe and perceive what you're seeing with your own eyes than to take a photo. These Artemis 2 astronauts can rapidly scan wide areas and adjust their focus in real time, as well as describe relationships between features. The crew will also observe the same regions multiple times under changing lighting conditions during the flyby and provide perspectives that would take robotic missions years to accumulate. During the Artemis 2 mission, LRO is also attempting to observe some of these same lunar features that the astronauts are studying. Collecting this data simultaneously highlights how different instruments and human eyes provide complementary information about the moon. This LRO data plays a direct role in preparing for future Artemis missions. Its measurements of topography, surface temperature, composition, radiation, and lighting conditions are used to assess hazards, identify safe landing sites, and locate potential resources such as water ice near the lunar South Pole. This mission, Artemis 2, represents the point where years of robotic preparation are paired with human exploration for the first time in the Artemis era. So together, LRO, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and Artemis 2 are demonstrating how NASA moves from mapping the moon robotically to exploring it with humans. We are laying the groundwork for future Artemis missions and sustained lunar operations. A check-in with Orion. We are now 4 days, 21 minutes, 4 days, 21 hours, and 22 minutes into the flight of Artemis 2, our crew aboard the Orion spacecraft. We are now 8,153 miles away from the moon, 250,742 miles away from Earth. The spacecraft is traveling at 1,030 miles per hour.
cool view in the cabin. It's actually a cool view to be off the camera now and looking at my crewmates getting up to their observation post and looking at this. Super fun.
Copy all, read. We like it.
As we heard confirmation from NASA astronaut and commander of Artemis 2, Reed Wiseman, they are now switching positions of the support teams and the observation teams. So initially, Reed Wiseman and Jeremy Hansen were at windows 2 and 3 in the Orion spacecraft, taking photos and making annotations in their PCDs, portable computing devices. They were also giving audible descriptions into their PCDs, wearing headsets with microphones and providing recordings that the science team will be able to listen to later. We were hearing from NASA astronauts Christina Cook and Victor Glover as they made observations as part of the support team. Now, as these teams are swapping, we anticipate hearing more from Reed and Jeremy as they'll be on the support team, while Victor and Christina will be at the windows taking photos and making annotations.
Copy, Reed. We're taking notes. We'd be curious too.
We are live in the Artemis mission control room during the lunar flyby of the Artemis 2 crew, the first humans to fly by the moon in over 50 years. Orion launched 4 days, 21 hours, and 30 minutes ago atop the SLS rocket, Space Launch System rocket from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Our 4 crew members inside the spacecraft are transitioning their positions. The cabin and window teams have swapped. Currently at the window, we have Victor Glover and Christina Cook, NASA astronauts, and serving as support, Reed Wiseman and Jeremy Hansen. For our crews at the window, they are using handheld Nikons with an 80 to 400 millimeter zoom lens. There are also GoPros on each of the solar arrays on Orion, and that's where this view is coming from right now. We have an interior camera of the crew as well, but they have dimmed the cabin lights. They've actually turned off the cabin lights to allow them to better see outside of the spacecraft. This also helps prevent any reflections from lights inside the spacecraft reflecting onto the windows while they are photographing the moon. We talked a little bit about the views and the cameras being used on the Orion spacecraft. And again, we do have GoPros on the tip of each solar array wing. Now, the bandwidth is a little bit limited because having a crew on board, we do have to downlink a lot more data. That includes their environmental control and life support system. We are not the only data, this view that you see, coming down from the spacecraft, and so we do rely on sharing some of that with the other flight control controllers and mission control. This helps the team monitor all systems aboard the spacecraft and ensure the safety of our astronauts. We are standing by for a situation report from the crew aboard the spacecraft. They've been imaging the whole moon. There is now a new crew at the window. That would be Victor Glover and Christina Cook. And so, being it's their first time since they have moved up to the window positions, they have a chance to orient themselves and describe and take pictures of any color or albedo variations across the surface. Reminder, albedo is the brightness or reflectiveness.
Integrity science for a science sit rep. When you're ready.
Houston Integrity, we have no external view of the moon right now for the floating crew numbers, so my only science terrific is that we have Victor in window 3 doing observations and Christina in window 2 with the long lens.
Integrity, we copy. Are the shrouds still on windows 1 and 4? And if so, would you consider trying to get a view through one of those windows?
We cannot take the shroud off of 4 because the Earth is too bright that's impacting Ike's peripheral vision. And then I can get a grazing glimpse out the docking hatch window. I can see Oriental south down to the South Pole. And the primary thing that I see from Oriental right now is just the long trenches that come out. And, when you come out the north side of Oriental, the kind of boulders across the northern half of the far side. But coming out the southern half of Oriental, I just see those large, here they look like gorges. They're almost like rain when it comes down the Grand Canyon and fingers off into the desert, kind of what it looks like. Also, Burgess Alpha is extremely bright. It's the brightest thing that I can see. Even brighter now than Aristarchus, which is heading off to the Terminator. It's almost impossible now to see Aristarchus, the thing that Jeremy and I look so much at. I can just barely see the crater rays from home. And I would say for albedo right now, I would go back to Grimaldi is still extremely dark, especially in that southwest corner. And there are parts of Oriental and the outer ring of Oriental that reach that same level of darkness, especially the rings of Oriental reach the same level of darkness as Grimaldi. And then south of Grimaldi, Jeremy and I were noting a few other just really dark areas of the cratering, Mare there, and those have that same darker albedo. But Burgess Alpha is the brightest, and Grimaldi darkest.
Integrity science, that was a great description. Thank you, and thanks for the docking window geometry to give us that description. Any comments before you go on the annular ring in Oriental?
The annular ring, which I think everybody kind of describes as like a pair of lips or a kiss on the far side of the moon from here, is very circular in nature. The northern part of it is wider, darker. The southern part is much lighter. It is very neat looking, and it is far more circular than I remember it looking in our training. The darkness of the northern side of the annular ring is the same darkness from here out this docking hatch window as the center mare in Oriental. Quite as dark as Stravani, but it is probably only because dust and lunar regolith has kind of impacted over time.
Reed, that's exactly what we were looking for. Thanks so much. You have heart hands coming out of the CERN. Just saying that the CERN was really excited about that. That annular ring was something we were really eager to hear about. So thanks.
Yep, you bet. And now Victor and Chrissy are moving on to Oriental. I got them situated over there a little bit late.
That was NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman, now providing a science sit rep as he is away from the windows most of the time. He is working as the support person along with Jeremy Hansen in the spacecraft, as Victor Glover and Christina Cook are now at windows 2 and 3, able to photograph the moon. Christina and Victor are also providing recorded information to their portable computing devices, that's their PCDs, and the science team will have access to that at a later time. They will then review it and compile all of this data to help further our understanding of the moon. One of the items you heard mentioned was Oriental Basin. This has been a very exciting opportunity for the crew. They have all been very excited about seeing Oriental, as well as the science team has been looking forward to it. It is known as the Grand Canyon of the Moon, as we discussed earlier. From the pictures, the science team is hoping that the crew will take centered images of the entire basin and surrounding craters in a single frame, but also use those 80 to 400 millimeter zoom lenses to create a mosaic entire basin. With their unaided eyes, the science team is hoping the crew will describe Southern Dark Annular Ring, which you heard Reed just describing, as well as any color, albedo, texture, or topography across the mare patches and ring mountains. Science team reports that the observations will be used to study the geologic evolution of the youngest lunar basin and to inform formation hypotheses for the annular ring. And again, another fun fact about Oriental is the diameter is the same distance between Johnson Space Center, where we are today, and Kennedy Space Center, where the crew launched on April 1st. This live view from the Orion spacecraft on the Artemis 2 mission, now 7,373 miles away from the moon, 251,130 miles from Earth. Again, the Artemis 2 crew passed the Apollo 13 record of the humans farthest from the Earth today at 12:57 p.m. Central Time, 1:57 p.m. Eastern Time. That distance set by Apollo 13 was 248,655 statute miles. We've clearly passed that, and we expect to pass that by about 4,105 miles. That will be when the spacecraft reaches its farthest distance from the Earth. It could be around 252,760 miles, but again, these are approximations and our targets, and we will make sure to report back the final numbers once we have them. We have some refined times of when we expect to have Earth set of Earth behind the moon while Orion flies behind the moon. That would be about 5:41 p.m. Central, 6:41 Eastern. The spacecraft would make its closest approach to the moon at 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern, and that would be about 4,066 miles. And then at 6:02 p.m. Central, and the spacecraft will reach its farthest distance from the Earth. We anticipate that'll be about 252,755 miles, which would be 4,111 miles farther than Apollo 13. We would see Earthrise again at 6:21 p.m. Central Time, and a few minutes later, regain communications with the crew. Currently aboard Orion, Victor Glover and Christina Cook are the two team members conducting lunar flyby observations, meaning they are using the Nikon cameras to photograph the moon, and their PCD, or the portable computing device, to conduct annotations. They are both recording information that will be downlinked to the science crew, and tomorrow morning the science team will have a conference with the team while the information is so fresh. They'll be speaking with the crew about their observations and
Se espera
their
que
data
mañana
collection.
en la mañana todo el equipo haga una conferencia acerca de las observaciones que han
Otherwise, most
hecho
of
de la
tomorrow,
luna
flight
en
day
el lado
7
oscuro.
is considered an off day.
Es impactante observar cómo hace tan solo unos 20 minutos la imagen que estamos viendo era la mitad de lo que se ve ahora. Está yendo aproximadamente a una velocidad muy alta. Las cámaras son directamente de la NASA. Esperemos obtener más información en unos minutos.
We are on flight day 6 of the Artemis 2 mission, the first time in more than 50 years that humans will observe the moon directly, providing a critical opportunity to practice how lunar science will be conducted during future Artemis missions. If you're just joining us,
Estamos
the
en el
crew
día
is well
6
into
de la
their lunar
misión
flyby
y
observations, and we
todas las
anticipate that we will
observaciones
hear
que
from
se
them
hacen
soon.
son para futuras investigaciones
A
en
few
la
times
Luna.
every hour, they are slated to call down with science sit reps or situation reports. We most recently had one from Commander Reed Wiseman.
Reed Wiseman nos
He
mantiene al
and
tanto
Jeremy
cada
Hansen, mission
hora,
specialist,
nos
were
está
first
haciendo
at the window
actualizaciones
today
cada
to
hora.
photograph and make annotations of what they were seeing. Therefore, we heard more from Victor Glover and Christina Cook earlier in
Más
the day during
tarde
those first blocks. But
escucharemos
now that
informes
Reed
de
Wiseman
Christina
and Jeremy Hansen
Glover
are on the support side, they are the ones calling down what they are seeing
acerca de
from
las
windows 1
observaciones y
and 4.
anotaciones en
Earlier,
unos
we heard
momentos.
that the Earth is so bright in window 4, they have had to temporarily cover it with a t-shirt. The moon preserves a near continuous record of solar system history that has been erased on Earth because the moon doesn't have an atmosphere. So things that we experience on Earth, like weather or plate tectonics, don't really apply. So the lunar surface retains evidence of ancient impacts, volcanism, and solar activity that scientists can study today. And studying the moon helps scientists understand
Lo que
how
hoy van
planets
a
formed and
investigar los
evolved, how
científicos
the
son
moon
impactos
influenced
lunares,
within
así
Earth's
como
history, and
actividad
how the sun
volcánica.
shaped conditions across the inner solar system. The moon also serves as a unique platform for studying the broader universe. Artemis Science is designed
Artemis
around
ofrece
questions
una
best answered by
plataforma
humans,
única para
working
observar
alongside robotic
a
systems,
detalle
providing
la
decades of
cara
robotic
que no
lunar
es
data
visible de
with
la
a
Luna.
real-time judgment, context, and adaptability that only humans can provide. This mission, Artemis 2, is serving as
Esa
a proving
misión
ground
también
for
nos
lunar science
proveerá
operations, which allows
adaptabilidad
NASA to test how
de
science is planned,
visión y detalles
executed, and
que
supported
una
during
misión
a
no
crewed deep
tripulada no
space
nos
missions
podría
ahead
ofrecer.
of our future Artemis flights.
Integrity, time for a window team position swap. So Victor and Christina, please switch places if you've not done so already, and remember your SD card for the camera.
We're in the swap right now. They're wrapping up their last comments, and they'll switch over and use cards from the long lens.
Copy.
As you heard in that call, it is now time for the team members at the window to swap positions.
Nos acaban de
That
decir
means
que a través de la
Victor Glover
ventana
and
cambiaron de
Christina Cook will
posición
be switching
los
roles.
tripulantes
One of them
y van
has
a
been
cambiar
photographing
roles.
the moon with a Nikon with an
En
80
cuanto
to
a la
100
visión
millimeter
por
zoom lens,
cámara,
while the other was making annotations on their portable computing device.
están ajustando todos los dispositivos
And both
computacionales.
are recording audio that the science team will be able to listen to.
También tendremos audios que están siendo adaptados para ser interpretados al llegar a la Tierra.
We are now 2 hours and 10 minutes until we expect to lose signal with the spacecraft as they fly behind the moon.
Se espera que faltan 2 horas para que la transmisión cese debido
And the next target for the crew
al
is
paso del
considered a
lado
crew choice
oculto de la
event.
Luna.
They have the option to focus on any regions or patterns or features that interest them.
También se espera que se envíen datos acerca
The
de
science
cada
team then asked the crew
característica
to capture pictures that illustrate
estudiada
their
a través
choice,
de la
as well
observación
as at
directa por
different
parte
zoom
de
levels,
la
and
tripulación.
to describe why those certain features or regions caught their eye.
A través de los ojos también humanos se podrán observar características más particulares.
Those recordings are part of what are being saved on their PCDs, portable computing device, that will be sent to the science team for analysis.
Todos estos mensajes están siendo enviados para su análisis en la Tierra.
The crew has been allotted 8 minutes for this crew choice event, and it's also a time for a scheduled sit rep or situation report. So we expect to hear them calling down what they are seeing soon. Something that the crew or that the science team has used to help prepare the crew is a cue card. These ask for feature ID if they happen to know the type or name, and if it is a target. Of course, in this situation, when they have a crew choice, they do not need to, it may or may not be a target. They want to know the location and the observation style. They've also asked for the geometry of what's being captured, the size, shape, boundary, and preservation, as well as the color and shadow. So the color tone, the albedo, that reflection or brightness, and any shadows or illumination. Next, they're interested in structure and texture. That includes slopes, structures, and textures, of course, and geologic relations, like association to other features, any contact to those features, and of course, their thoughts, impressions, or interpretations. They are interested even in emotions and excitement that the crew may be having. This flyby day has been practiced in many ways, even in Sims here in Mission Control Houston. The team also conducted some field work, learning how to look for specific geologic features. They also photographed a large globe, and the science team helped them determine which features they would be targeting and how to look at those.
Se está analizando previamente qué características serán analizadas a través de imágenes enviadas con anterioridad.
We have a few more minutes that the crew would be photographing their crew choice. Again, this is NASA astronauts Victor
En
Glover
unos
and
minutos se estarán
Christina Cook at the
fotografiando
windows.
los
They will then move
objetivos
on to
seleccionados.
another discussion portion. This is for the far side albedo, that reflectiveness, and color that they are seeing. We heard earlier
También
about
están
some
ajustando lo
browns seen on
que
the
es
moon,
el
which is very
albedo, o
interesting,
sea,
especially here
el
from
brillo de
Earth,
la
where we are
luna,
just seeing
para que no
whites,
interfiera
grays,
con los detalles.
and maybe even black at some points. When
Quizás
they
en
get into
algunos
that
puntos se
discussion
vean
for
oscuros o no se
far
vean.
side albedo in a few minutes, the theme is looking to know how that color and albedo is, what those variations look like across the far side. right side of your screen, the Science Evaluation Room, or SIR, where team members are looking real time at what the crew is seeing. And even earlier, where
Del lado izquierdo se puede ver el salón de visualización, en donde pueden observar todo en tiempo real, tal como lo estamos observando ahora.
They're really enjoying, they both decided to pick the Terminator, and they're spending a lot of time looking at the Terminator, just talking about the resolution that they can see, the depth of the craters, and the various interesting and unique excavations that they can see. So Victor is on the long lens, and Christina is just looking at the window.
Jeremy Hansen está hablando en este momento y menciona que están impresionados con todo lo que están viendo. Es impresionante que cada vez que nos acercamos cambie todo demasiado rápido. Las características van cambiando conforme se acerca.
Jeremy, Science, thanks for that sit rep. Do have a question. A few times we've heard you and the other crew describe change during the course of your flyby. Would be interested in future descriptions of
Una pregunta a la tripulación. Ustedes dijeron que hay cambios conforme pasan alrededor de la Luna. Esperando la retransmisión. Tarda unos minutos en llegar la señal desde donde está la Luna hasta la Tierra.
Yeah, Kelsey, sounds good. We definitely keep an eye on that. My eyes are just not readjusted. The moon is so bright when you come back to the window. It's just in the interior of the cabin.
Sí, de acuerdo. Mis ojos se tienen que ajustar cada vez que miro la Luna porque es tan luminosa. Así que a través de la ventana las observaciones serán desafiantes. También observamos puntos oscuros. Observamos también las mesetas a través de la ventana. También observo algunas áreas de gran altura, mesetas.
Landing on the highlands, and then we obviously see the ray areas as a lighter albedo, but in between the rays where the deposit would be thinnest, that is what it looks like is causing the brown to be. So I saw that in the northwest side of Aristarchus, or sorry, that dark area of the highlands, northwest side of the highlands. I saw it in the highlands to the east of Glushko, and then I see those same brownish hues west of Oriental, and I drew a contact there on one note, but that's a huge region, kind of like a piece of pie with the point of the pie pointing at Oriental and then going up towards the northern side of Hertzsprung. And that is an area that just looks like a different, that brownish albedo.
That was fantastic, Jeremy. We had heard rumors of the green and brown hues, and so you really read my mind on asking about those. Understand they likely didn't have any contact with each other the way that you described them, but please correct
Es
me if I
fantástico, Jeremy, lo
misunderstood
que nos
that. And
reportas,
then
lo que nos
last
estás
thing, I'll
describiendo.
make the same
Habíamos
offer we
escuchado
made to
rumores
Victor
antes.
earlier. If it would be helpful for us to verbalize any targets,
Es
if you
muy
can stay at
de
the
ayuda
windows
para
and keep your
nosotros
eyes
escuchar
adjusted
esto
to
de
the
modo
moon,
verbal.
please let us know.
Hace unos momentos, Jeremy, uno de los tripulantes, estuvo al aire.
If you got something you want us to look at, Kelsey, you can send it on up.
Definitely not looking to interrupt your flow, Rita, Jeremy, only offering assistance if you guys want to keep your eyes off of the PCDs.
I think you're okay. Not really science related, and we definitely learned this in Apollo, but the thing that is just most fascinating, I think, to me and Victor right now is even as rugged as the far side looks, when you look at Oriental and all, it's rugged. But man, when you look at the Terminator, it is just like impossibly rugged, and it reminds you that the whole far side is that way. It's just the Terminator is really bringing out the shadows and the hills and the valleys, and it is just it's
Se puede
unbelievable.
observar
No
todo lo que
surface
son
on the
las colinas y
Terminator
los
is not
valles
marked by mere impact, and
a través de la ventana.
you realize that it is true across the whole far side. You just can't see it due to sun illumination right now.
Los datos necesitan ser capturados ahora mismo.
Reed, Houston copies, and we were commenting on the same
Houston,
thing.
aquí
Even
copiando.
from our view, the Terminator looks absolutely alien because there's just so much texture in there that we're just not used to seeing. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Gracias por compartir todo esto.
There's also, I don't know the name of it, coming out the southwest of Oriental, right on the massive crater. I don't know the name of it. Maybe you can look on the solar array wing video and tell me it's right. It's the southernmost crater you see on the Terminator right now.
We're looking for you.
Lo que ahora estamos viendo es una aproximación al lado oscuro de la luna. Uno de los tripulantes estuvo hablando hace unos momentos y Houston ha respondido. Está relatando la observación de colinas, valles, mesetas y detalles que no se pueden ver a través de viajes no tripulados. Se están aproximando a una gran velocidad. Se espera que en un par de horas se pierda la comunicación cuando estén completamente en el lado oscuro de la luna, ya que esta obstaculizará la señal y ya no podrán recibirse mensajes alrededor de 41 minutos, lo cual es esperado y está planeado. En este tiempo los astronautas podrán hacer observaciones, realizar mediciones con tecnología avanzada sobre el terreno. También se estará buscando alguna evidencia de agua congelada en el polo sur de la luna, con miras a obtener observaciones más detalladas para futuros viajes, esta vez con alunizaje en la luna. Cabe mencionar que no se va a alunizar esta vez, simplemente van a hacer un recorrido, un flyby, como ellos dicen en inglés, un sobrevuelo Se va a hacer un sobrevuelo.
We're loving
Escuchamos.
that picture. Thanks for showing us. And Reed, as an answer to your last question, we believe that that is Chebyshev's crater. And the sir agrees with that.
Okay, that picture I was just showing you is an 8X iPhone out the knocking hatch for the high grazing angle. It's just amazing.
We love it. Thank you.
This is Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas. Mission elapsed time, 4 days, 22 hours, 12 minutes into the flight of Orion. This is Lunar Flyby Day for the crew of the spacecraft. Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen are now the farthest people to have ever traveled from Earth. Orion is now 6,643 miles away from the moon and continuing to grow closer. Again, their closest approach will be about 4,066 miles. The best comparison is if you held a basketball at arm's length. That's about what it would look like to the Artemis 2 crew at their closest approach. This view showing at the very top, a camera coming from Orion, continuing their flyby of the moon. We have 3 more flyby observation blocks after the completion of this one. Down on the bottom left of your screen, that's the SIR, the Science Evaluation Room, where team members are continuing to work through all of the targets that the crew is photographing today, and they've helped identify some of the craters and some of the other items that the crew has seen on the moon's surface. Down on the right is Artemis Mission Control here in Houston. Those two rooms down at the bottom are just down the hall from each other.
Estos dos cuartos controlan todo lo que es la comunicación del Artemis 2. También entre ellos están en comunicación constante. Se cree que el máximo acercamiento previsto puede ocurrir alrededor de las 20 horas.
Cabin and window team swap. That means Victor and Christina, who have been at the windows, will fly to the cabin, the background essentially, and be their support crew for Reed and Jeremy. Reed and Jeremy will move back up to the windows.
A la 1:56, la misión superó oficialmente la marca de distancia del Apolo 13, 400.171 kilómetros, convirtiendo a Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch y Jeremy Hansen en los humanos que más lejos han viajado en la historia. Esta transmisión es gratuita y es oficial, con comentarios de ingenieros y científicos proporcionado por la NASA. También está disponible en la plataforma Netflix, en alianza histórica con la NASA. También hay varias coberturas en canales de YouTube. Entre los objetivos de la misión está validar los sistemas de soporte vital y navegación de la nave Orión.
Discussion portion of the flyby in the lunar targeting package, where it says far side albedo/color. They are looking, science team, looking to get a good understanding of what the crew can see at this point, and its brightness as well as any colors. We did hear earlier Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen reporting that they could even see browns and even greens on the moon. I'm really looking forward to seeing those photos. And in just a couple of minutes, the teams will swap from the cabin to the window. Another rundown of just how this flyby is choreographed inside the spacecraft today. So these activities have been timelined, and there are these 5 blocks of time during which the crew is going to be observing the moon from Orion's windows. Now we are just coming up on the end of the second block, and we will start the third soon. So at any time during those blocks, 2 members are at the windows working in a pair. One is taking photos from window 2 and has a blue shroud over the window to help prevent any reflections from inside the spacecraft. They are also using an 8400mm zoom lens. And the other astronaut on the window team will be in window 3 using their portable computing device to make annotations. Now, again, both of those crew members are making audio recordings of what they are seeing, and we are not hearing that right now. Those are going to be downlinked later to the science team, who will evaluate them and use that data to inform our understanding of the moon. Those 2 crew members at the windows swap roles.
Integrity Houston, it is time for another swap between the cabin and the window teams. So we have 15 minutes of handover time, and then we will expect Jeremy and Reed at the windows and Christina and Victor at the cabin. I have no new vehicle
Cristina
updates for you,
y Víctor
but I
están
do
en la
have a
cabina.
photo location for some photos on PCD, and I want to let you know that Jeremy's family have arrived in the viewing gallery.
Cada tripulante se turna para obtener imágenes a través de la ventana.
Okay, Jenny, we copied most of that. The only thing we're missing is what you meant about the photo location on Victor's PCD. And hello, hello to my family. I think that must be Catherine and Devin that are there. And I'm glad they made it to the viewing room. And we copy it's time for crew swap. The A team's coming out of the windows and the B team's going in.
Okay, copy. All I meant to pass for Victor's PCD is that there are some lease load photos that were requested that are now in his favorite photos folder. And you're exactly right. We have Catherine and Devin here. They give you a big wave, and they're super excited and happy to see part of what you're seeing.
Estamos muy emocionados de ver lo que ustedes están viendo. Otros datos interesantes: tras completar el bucle lunar, la cápsula Orión emprenderá regreso para aterrizar en el Océano Pacífico.
All right, that's no problem, and it's unrelated to flyby.
Aproximadamente aterrizarán en las costas de San Diego el 10 o el 11 de abril.
This is Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. And as you just heard, Capcom, or Capsule Communicator Jenny Gibbons, Canadian Space Agency astronaut, and Artemis 2 crew backup, relaying to the teams in Orion that it is time for a swap from the cabin to the window teams.
Ahora es un momento de
We're now
cambio
at the tail end
de
of
la
the second
cabina hacia
lunar flyby
el
observation
equipo que
block.
está
Again,
en
we
las
have 5 of
ventanas.
these today. Most recently, Victor Glover and Christina Cook were at the windows photographing and making annotations, while Reed
Christina Cook
Wiseman
and
and
Victor
Jeremy
Glover
Hinson
están
were in the
obteniendo
cabin providing
información
support, whether
a
that
través
is
de las
as-do color help,
ventanas.
but also science sit reps calling down any situation reports for what they are seeing on the moon or anything about the vehicle status.
A través de sus observaciones
With that
podemos
call to
obtener
make the swap,
información
Reed and Jeremy will
que
be
están
back at the
anotando.
windows, making observations for what they see at the moon and taking photos.
Así como están anotando información y tomando fotografías. El máximo acercamiento a la superficie lunar para la hora de México es aproximadamente a las 17:02 horas. También se prevé una charla en vivo con los astronautas, aproximadamente tiempo de Ciudad de México, horas. A las 20:50 horas tendremos una charla en vivo con los astronautas, con la tripulación, después de que haya pasado el periodo de observación del lado no visible lunar.
Again, you're watching live coverage of NASA's Artemis 2.
That's really awesome up here is we now have the moon and the Earth in window 3 simultaneously, and the moon is a given, and the Earth is a constant. And I'm guessing in about 45 minutes we'll have 2 identical crescents as we change our position in the universe.
cool. Thank you.
That's the Artemis 2 crew, the first astronauts to fly by the moon in more than 50 years, reporting that when they look out of window 3, one window, they're able to
Los
see
primeros
both the
astronautas
Earth
en
and the moon
sobrevolar la
at the
Luna
same time
en
now.
más de
Now,
50
obviously,
años.
our view is from a camera on the solar array wing pointed at the moon. We hope to see that view of both the Earth and the moon soon.